Hello everyone, and welcome to episode 4 of Songsmith. In this episode, we'll talk about where you can get ideas for your songs both lyrically and musically. Hello everyone, and welcome to Songsmith. I'm your host, Keaton Williamson, and my goal is to help equip you to be the best musician you can be. The purpose of this show is to give you the knowledge it takes to be a successful songwriter, producer, and indie artist, while also honoring God in whatever music you create. We all want to be successful in this crowded space, so join me as we explore what it takes to be a songsmith. Welcome to the first official episode since launch day. Thank you for coming back. I appreciate you coming to listen to the show again, and I hope you enjoyed the last 3 episodes that came out and that you're going to enjoy this one a lot. Kind of like episode 1, this one's going to be more of a foundation or basics episode, a breaking down a basic of songwriting. If that makes any sense, I hope it did. In this episode, we're going to talk about where you can get ideas for both your lyrics in your songs and your music. As I talked about in episode 1, the idea of your song is really kind of that anchor, focal point, centerpiece, whatever you want to call it. It's what you're always referencing as you write. Without a good idea or good anchor, something to keep looking back to, it's easy to get lost in songwriting and find out that you've written a song that really doesn't have a straightforward meaning and goes in 15,000 different directions that don't relate to one another at all. I know I personally have done that more than once and either abandoned the song or obviously never really did anything with it after I wrote it because it just didn't feel cohesive. A good idea really helps bring the song together and point your listener to a specific thing you're trying to say. It helps forward the message when it's all related to this one idea. And it can just be more engaging, especially when it's a story or something, if you have a main point in your story that you're trying to make the focal point. For example, I'm going to talk about, again, one of the songs I wrote called Through the Sea. The idea for it was that God's way is through the sea, like I've said before. And every part of that song related to that idea. The chorus is, God, your way is through the sea. Goes on to say, farther than I can go all on my own, and stuff like that. It's all about how God makes a way where there is not a way. And then in the verses, I talk about how we, or the Israelites, during the time of the Exodus, didn't see the way out because the way was through the sea. It was something that they wouldn't have even thought of. And then the bridge is just kind of like, your way is higher, your way is stronger, that kind of thing. It sounds better than when I just say it, but you get the point I'm trying to make, I hope. Anyway, enough of my rambling about my song. The idea for a song is really what ties it all together and makes it a cohesive story or message. And today, we're going to talk about where you can get that idea for your own music. Ideas can come from a lot of different places. For me, I've gotten them from anywhere from books, the Bible. A lot of ideas have come from sermons. I will pull out a little note card and just start scribbling things down on it, verses, things my pastor has said, etc. It can be from conversations. It can be from feelings you have, from interactions with other people, conversations. Really, anywhere can get a song idea. You kind of want to be looking out for the ideas in, like, how does this thing make you feel? How do you look at this one thing? Say it's a piece of scripture. What are you viewing it as? You can take it at face value and be like, for God so loved the world, he gave his one and only son, and for whoever believes in him shall not perish but have eternal life. And you can just sing that like We the Kingdom did. For God so loved the world that he gave us his one and only son to save us. Or you can take a different perspective on that verse, a different idea from it. You could say, I can't believe that you loved us enough that you'd send your own son. It's unfathomable, and I praise you for that. Same verse, but you're looking at it in different ways. And this can be applied to many different things. Obviously verses, but it can also be from interactions. Maybe it's your side of a story and maybe a relationship, or it's the other person's side of a story and a relationship. You're both in that same relationship. You have those same circumstances, but it's a different story from each of you. There's interesting songs. A lot of country songs have done this, where you have one singer, typically a boy, and then another singer, a girl, where they're singing their different sides of the stories. And those are really interesting. So you can do stuff like that, which is really cool. Really looking through your ideas and finding, what angle do I want to take on it? What am I specifically trying to say out of this? Here's the idea. Let me narrow it down a little bit further. So as I said, you can get ideas from many different places. When you see something, hear something, think of something that you really like, it is important to write it down quickly As much as you want to be like, oh, that is really interesting, I'm not going to forget that. I forget ideas all the time. Everybody does. We're human. We don't remember everything, and the things that we thought were going to be unforgettable, we forget in 5 minutes. Make sure to write them down, whether you have a small notepad with you all the time, or like me, I use a note in my notes app on my phone, and I'll scribble down type down the verse or the idea or the feeling I'm trying to convey. I try to keep it short and concise, which is a good practice, because if you can really hone in on that main idea in like 1 or 2 sentences, and then when you sit down to write the song, you can kind of build that out with the different parts of the songs. So if you can keep it down to like 2 sentences, in my personal opinion, I think that's really good. And it just takes less time if you can really hone in on what that thing it is you're trying to express. I'm going to tell you a couple of my song ideas that I've jotted down, both ones that I've finished as songs and ones I still have yet to do, just to give you a better idea of how you can take these things and make them into full-fledged songs. The first one I'm going to talk about is Dear God. The song I wrote recently, I really enjoyed it. It was kind of this song about like a letter to God. I was saying I'm sorry for how life has been, how I've been so busy, and honestly sometimes put God on the wayside. I'm sure we can all relate to that. And it was me saying, I'm sorry. Let's start over. Let's try this again. I want to be on fire for you more than I have ever before. The note I had jotted down was, Dear God, and then in parentheses, an honest confession of life and just talking to God, which is exactly what the song was. Sometimes I'll also jot down like a couple lyrics that come to my mind. An example would be this one here. I need you to clear out my basement and all I have stuffed down there. I've done things I'm not proud of, things I'm ashamed of. This was based off a sermon that a missionary who came to our church had preached about. He kind of explained the whole thing is we let God into our house. We might let him into every room, but then we stuff all these things into the basement of our lives. We say, hey, you can come through all my life except this one room. And in this one room, the basement, as he said in the analogy, we stuff everything we don't want him to see. We put everything we've done, everything we've said down there. We're like, you can't have everything else except this. And the whole idea for the song, as these words might have made sense, is that I want God to come down and clean that out too. It's not a clean house if you leave one room dirty and just locked up. I want God to touch every single part of my life. I also have a lot of verses jotted down. Typically, I like to write down the reference and then also type out the verse. So if I'm scrolling through my notes trying to find a song I really want to write about, when I go to sit down and write, I can easily tell what the idea for it is. Here's one, for instance, 2 Corinthians 11:13-14. For such people are false apostles, deceitful workers, masquerading as apostles of Christ. And no wonder, for Satan parades as an angel of light. The idea with that song is, or at least what I want it to be, is that not everything is as it seems. People can look all good on the front, and what they are saying can seem to be good, but in reality, it's false. It's a lie or a twisted truth. And that's how Satan goes around. He tells us half-truths, half-lies, because it makes it more believable. So I really want to write from that perspective. It's more of like, be on your guard. Don't take everything at face value. Look into it further. Hopefully those things give you a better idea of what I was trying to say as to how you can jot down an idea very quickly and come back to it later when you can sit down to write. So now you maybe have a list of song ideas on your phone in a notepad, or maybe you did remember them. You have the idea for the song. You know what you want to say, but it's really equally important to know how you want to say it. And what I mean by that is more so the feeling that's behind it, the sound, if it's a sad song, it's got a sad feeling. If it's a happy song, it has a happy feeling. You know what I mean. Normally, now this is not always the case, but normally a song about death and sadness isn't all upbeat like, yeah, 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 because that's not the emotion they're trying to drive across. You really want to pick music that complements the feeling you're trying to put across with your songs. Obviously, there's many times that people break these rules, and it makes a lot of sense, and it does really well. But you want to make sure you know what it is you want your song to sound like, as well as what you want it to say. There's several ways to get ideas for the sound of your music, outside of just being like, oh, I want it to feel this way, or I want it to feel that way. As I said, choosing a sound that is complementary, like say it's a sad song or a slow song, you might use more of these like minor chords, a slower feel. You really think about it. You really hear every single word. But if it's a happy song, it might be a little bit faster. It might be happy chords like major chords like G, C, A. Whereas the sad songs, it's like A minor, E minor, D minor. You have a lot more minor chords. I'm not a music theory professional. I don't know a lot of music theory, in fact. But I do know these basic things. And there's a lot of stuff out there that you can look into that goes more in depth as to why certain things make you feel certain ways. And if you look into that, you can learn some pretty interesting things and really help make your music come across exactly how you want. So I definitely recommend going and checking out on YouTube or something, finding some videos talking about the psychology of how different kinds of chords can make you feel different things. Another thing in a song you want to think about is how you want your listeners to feel throughout the song. What is the experience you're going to give them? I'm going to bring up again the song Why God. In the verses, Austin French is talking like, hey, why is this happening? Why is that happening? And it's kind of slower. It's kind of more like, really think about these things. Why, God, do people have to die? Why do marriages have to end? Why do all these things have to happen? But then the tone changes. It gets a little bit happier almost. And then in the chorus, you hear him saying, but that's why, God, I need you. These things are the reason I need you. And it's more like, how do I explain it? It's like just, wow. Oh. It gets happier. It gets more upbeat. Those are the kind of things you want to think about as you're writing your song. What are your listeners going to feel when you are in the verse? And then maybe the pre-chorus is starting to slowly introduce them into a different feeling as they get to the chorus. And then you're introduced back into the verse. And then eventually you maybe get to the chorus again. And then you go to the bridge, which is a whole nother feeling. In storytelling songwriting, like my song Through the Sea, and yes, I'm going to bring this song up a lot just because I enjoy it a lot, and it's a really good example for a couple things I've been trying to explain across these couple episodes. In the song, it starts out with the verses being this more story-driven approach. It talks about how the Israelites lost trust in God, how they started fearing because they didn't see the way he had for them. But then we move into the chorus, and it starts talking about, it's no longer story-driven. It starts talking about how God's way is through the sea. It's referencing the verses and saying, hey, there is a way that they didn't see. This is what's actually going on. And then again, in the verses, I relate it to me and us in modern day, how it can be like, I don't see what's going on. And then it goes back to the chorus and it's saying, well, here is what's going on. Here's what the plan is. And in the bridge, I go to more of a praise sound. The bridge goes, your way is higher, and yes, your way is stronger. God, your way, God, your way. It's an acknowledgement of what he is, saying that, hey, your way is higher. Your plans are better than what I have. I'm taking the listener through a series of different things. I'm giving them examples of what's happened in the past, and for us even now, and then saying, but this is what God is saying he's going to do. He's giving us a way that we didn't even see possible. And then in the bridge, I'm acknowledging that and saying, hey, your way is higher. Your way is stronger. And just like in awe of what he has done. So obviously you can have tons of different ideas for songs. You can have ideas for how you want it to sound, what you want the lyrics to be like. But another crucial part of songwriting is actually listening to songs. Wow, shocker, right? A friend actually brought this one point up to me. Really submerging yourself in the kind of music you want to write is very important. If you want to write upbeat, hip-hop sounding music, but all you're listening to is classical or maybe worship style music, it might be a little bit harder to do that. And vice versa, if you're only listening to rap, but you want to write a more slow, somber sounding song, it might be a little bit hard to latch onto those ideas because you're not commonly listening to those things. What you listen to heavily affects the kind of music taste you have, and even more so, affects how you write. For the longest time, I've listened to CCM, standard type music, your Toby Macs, your Mercy Me's, your Elevation Worships and stuff. The things that are playing on radio. But within the last couple of years, I broke into the indie artist realm and started listening to people like Sam Bowman, Xander Sallows, Matthew Parker, Jay Steph, just to name a few. Their music is vastly different from what's on mainstream Christian radio. But still, even though I've been listening to them for a while, I do find myself falling into the rut of writing songs like more standard Christian songs. And there's nothing wrong with that, but I want to be writing more unique. I want to be writing a little bit different like the indie artists do. I really enjoy Sam Bowman because the kind of music he writes is telling a story, but it's tied to a verse. Basically what he does is he takes a verse and takes a concept from that verse and then either relates it to how he sees it or how he doesn't see something in his life happening around that. It's really amazing. He even wrote a song about King Nebuchadnezzar, and if you didn't know anything about King Nebuchadnezzar, you probably wouldn't realize that that's what the song was about, but it's just such an amazing song. It's called Garden King. I'll make sure to link that in the show notes because it's really a great song, and I recommend you check it out, as well as all his music, really. Back to what I was saying. Submerging yourself in the kind of music you want to write helps you hear the things and see the things that are being done in that genre so you can then emulate it. It's not copying, but you're emulating the same kind of feeling, the same style, without being the exact same or a copycat. Maybe sit down and listen to an album by your favorite artist in a genre you want to write like. Listen to each of those songs intently and pick out the different things they're doing. Try and maybe listen for the different instruments. Listen to the different things they're doing in each of the verses, choruses, bridges, whatever. Break down in your mind, or even write down on a paper, the different elements, the different instruments, the different types of voices, the way they use everything in that song. And then you can be like, okay, if I want to write like this, I might use these core elements that I see popping up in this song that really makes it feel this way. As you start to continually listen to those kind of music and really break it down in your mind, you'll start to catch on to what those things that they're doing and really can implement it into your own songs, both lyrically and musically. If you know how to produce music, try producing songs that you enjoy. Try listening to those tracks and picking out the different things and rebuilding the song for yourself. Then you can know exactly what they did and then be like, okay, so they did this, this, and that. Analyze, analyze, analyze. Find out what makes that song sound the way it does. So you can be like, okay, I'm going to write a song like this. I want to have these elements in it. Another small thing I'd like to say is that if you want to write songs a certain way, play songs a certain way. Play the kind of music you want to write like, because not only have you analyzed or you see the music, but you're actively playing it and it's getting into your mind. There's something about playing or singing a song that really embeds that feeling, those things into you. The more you play it, the more you memorize it, the more you gain a understanding of the feeling that song carries. One great website to get lots of music, at least for a lot of mainstream artists, is Ultimate Guitar or Guitar Tabs. It's called a couple different things. I'll link the website in the show notes as well, but on there you can search a lot of different songs and find chord charts that people have made. There's a free and paid version of it. The free version just gives you access to chord charts made by just users, whereas you also have access to chord charts made by the website, which are sometimes a little bit more accurate, and there's a few perks like backing tracks for different instruments, so you can really listen to those different things. But the free version, which is what I have, is perfectly fine for most people. You can find tons of different songs that you like to play, and on the website it lets you transpose it, so if it's in a key you can't play, or you need a capo and play different chord shapes or whatever, you can do all that straight from the app or in the website. Be on the lookout for ideas everywhere, in things you hear, in things that are said, in things you listen to, music, whatever it may be. Be attentive when you're listening to things for how that could possibly make a song. Don't be afraid if it's a bad idea. Jot everything down that you think sounds good. Maybe you come back later and it's not a great idea, but it's good to have it and find out it was bad rather than not have it and be like, oh shoot, what was that one idea? It sounded really good. Then, when you come to sit down and write, you have tons of ideas you can choose from and be like, this one sounds interesting for right now, or I really relate to this one right now. Let's try and write this. Here is episode 4's Songsmith Challenge. I want you to gain 3 different ideas from 3 different places. Maybe it's a sermon, a scripture, something somebody said, another song, anything I've talked about in this episode, or even other things that you might find. I want you to find 3 ideas from 3 different places, and then choose one of them and try and write at least a verse or a chorus about that idea. Feel free to write more than that. Feel free to write an entire song. Don't let these challenges hold you back, but it's something to start with, and hopefully you can take that and continue it to be even more than just that small snippet of a song, but maybe an entire song that you really like. So, 3 ideas, 3 different places, write at least a verse or a chorus based on that idea. I'll also give you a bonus challenge. I want you to create a small playlist of at least 5 songs in the type of genre or sound of a song you would like to write. Maybe relate it to one of those 3 ideas you gained, and then choose 5 or more songs, put them in a playlist that are all in a similar sound to how you want to write this one idea. Alrighty, good luck and get writing. Here we are at the end of the episode again. Thank you guys for tuning in to episode 4 of Songsmith. It's amazing to know that you guys came back and listened after the launch episodes, and I hope that you guys are actually gaining valuable information from these. I want to know how it's going for you guys, so let me know on Instagram or email me. Both those things can be found in the show notes of today's episode. I want to hear your music. If you have music on Spotify, Amazon Music, or wherever else it may be, send it to me on Instagram or over Gmail. I'd love to check it out. If you don't have it released, but you do have a recording of it, or you are going to record it, you can send it to me also over Instagram or email by sending me an audio file or a link that you might make through iCloud or Google Drive. As you're doing the Songsmith challenges, I'd also like to know how those are going. You can either tell me how you did it, you can record something of it, or you can post a reel and tag me in it. All the above are great ways to let me know about the Songsmith challenges and how they're going for you guys. I also wanted to let you know that episode 5, the next episode in 2 weeks, is an interview with my friend Edie Lauer, who is a part of the Narrow, a traveling band from Olivet Nazarene University. It's going to be a great episode, and I don't want you to miss it, so make sure to tune back in to hear from her. Thanks again for listening, and as always, keep writing.